Hey everyone, welcome, welcome. If you are in the WordPress theme business, then you've probably felt the ground shifting underneath you recently. Full site editing, block based designs, changes in the marketplace are reshaping what it takes to succeed. Theme shops that don't adapt quickly right now risk really falling behind very quickly. To unpack what's happening there and where it's headed, we wanted somebody who has been through it, been through the ringer of themes and block themes, who's pivoted and built and sold and kept on building. And so today's special guest is Brian Gardner. We'll see you on the other side. This is WP Product Talk, a place where every week we bring you insights, product marketing, business management and growth, customer experience, product development, and more. It's your go-to podcast for WordPress product owners by WordPress product owners. And now, enjoy the show. Welcome, welcome. I am Matt Cromwell from Stellar WP.
And I'm Zack Katz from Gravity Kit.
And like I said, we've got a special guest today. Brian Gardner is with us. Brian, hey man, welcome, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here.
For those who aren't in the know, tell them who you are, what you do, what makes you so famous. I'm just kidding.
Nothing. I'm kidding. So, yes, I am Brian Gardner. I am head of community at WP Engine. I am a WordPress obsessor. I don't even know anymore what to call myself. I think about it all the time. I've been doing WordPress things since 2006. Founded StudioPress, co-created the Genesis framework with Nathan Rice, and currently have a few side projects that I'm dabbling in. So I'll channel my inner Barbara Mandrell, and I was a WordPress themer when WordPress theming wasn't cool.
Absolutely. Brian, you're like the reason why I even know what an action hook is at all in the first place.
I didn't know what one was either until Nathan and I started building Genesis. I mean, the relationship he and I had for like the 5-second version is that I would speak in English to Nathan and he would then bring it back in code. I'd be like, well, how do we do this? And if that, then do that. And he would write the code, bring it back. I'd look at it and be like, oh,
yeah. Hey, Genesis was the same for me. It took me from being an HTML guy to being a PHP guy.
Yeah. It really broke ground in ways that nothing else was at the time at all. And I have to say, I was like, I think I know this WordPress thing. I think I got this down. And then somebody was like, you should try Genesis. And I looked at it and I was like, why? Why? I don't understand. Everything is different and weird. And I'm uncomfortable because it made me feel like I didn't know anything again. It was a big, fun, interesting learning curve for me, for sure.
Yeah, Genesis was the product of my design and visual ADHD, because every other day I would have just a different design idea. And I went to Nathan. I'm like, hey, how do we do this where I don't have to like literally build a brand new theme every single time I have an idea? Because so much of what I'm doing is like the same core code. And that's sort of the impetus of how Genesis got started. I was like, I just need to like style design, like, and have that be kind of decoupled in a sense from all of the code, which was basically, repetitive. So that's how Genesis and child themes sort of came.
I think what's fascinating to me too, like kind of like in the WordPress history kind of things, is that there were like a lot of folks who actually really cut their teeth in the WordPress kind of, I don't like calling it like the influencer or whatever, but folks got a name for themselves because of the way in which they taught or leveraged or blogged about Genesis. And I really think that was really unique at the time. There weren't a lot of folks out there who were really like, there were folks like me and others who were writing about WordPress in general. But to talk specifically about implementing for a client based on a tool, that wasn't as common at that time, but it was happening for Genesis for sure. And I think you paved the way in that aspect as well, don't you think?
We built the product, yes, but the people who built sort of content-driven sites around Genesis, one person in particular I'm thinking of, and I actually had the luxury of meeting up with him in real life a few years back at WordCamp US was a guy named
Mm.
Sridhar. He actually blogged about this. He had a Genesis tutorial site, and he was known as like the de facto, like, hey, if anybody needs help, hire Sridhar or go check out his tutorials. He built himself and his family a house from the
Wow.
money he made from his endeavors. So back in its heyday, Genesis was really
Yeah.
a thriving
Yeah.
town.
Carrie Dills is another one. Like I met Carrie
Yep.
only
Mhm.
because of her work on Genesis back in the day. And she's been
Yep.
doing great work ever since then, and at LinkedIn Learning doing stuff there as well. Like it launched a whole
Mhm.
bunch of interesting aspects, for sure.
And
Good.
is that the same? Is that the same now for the market of themes? I wonder if we have another guest we could introduce.
Well, we do want to talk about, this market. And if you think about like who represents this market nowadays, there's probably Brian a bit and maybe one other. But he's with us today. McAllister, welcome, man.
Hello. Thanks for having me back.
Hello.
I've been just been lurking in the waiting room listening to the combo.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, for those who might not know, let everybody know who you are and what you do and why we asked you to be here at all.
I, like many others, uh, learned a lot from Mr. Brian Gardner in the world of WordPress
Mm.
themes and WordPress products. And yeah, I've been around a long time too, making WordPress themes and plugins. And yeah, following kind of Brian's trajectory as well of making cool products and staying on the forefront, building cool things, core adjacent, and now I'm building Ollie, the popular block theme, and Ollie Pro, and also just like out there doing fun videos and dev rally kind of stuff for WordPress. I love building on this thing, and I think we're standing at the base camp of a new WordPress mountain, and so we're trying to build products for that new adventure.
I love it.
I need to clarify something here, Mike. You are by no stretch following me in any regard. You have taken that baton and have run far ahead of me. So it's no secret the man crush I have in you and your design chops, and so I need to give props where it is due. What the work you have done with Ollie and Ollie Pro. It's almost embarrassing how much I gush over the stuff that you guys do. But truth be said, Mike, you are leading the
Yeah.
way, and
Oh,
well
thanks,
done.
brother. I appreciate that.
That's well said. I've told Mike this before that when full site editing happened, I'm a Cadence person. I love Cadence WP. I'm embedded in that product. And when full site editing came out, I was like, I got to figure that out, see what that's all about, see if I even should care at all. And I tried default themes, and I was like, this is a mess. I really don't enjoy this environment. And then Mike and Ollie made a bunch of waves. And I was like, I guess I'll try again. And the Ollie onboarding made full site editing make sense to me. Literally, I was like, I understand the direction now. I understand why it is what it is. And that wasn't because of WordPress core. It wasn't because of default themes. It was because of Ollie's onboarding, ironically. And I know that I've heard others say very similar things.
Yeah.
Yeah. It needed some hand holding, I think, in order for it all to make sense.
Yeah, there's and Brian knows this well too. The many aspects of modern WordPress full site editing, as it's called. There's so much there to the modern building workflow. We got these patterns and then styles, which can include color palettes and typography pairings, and templates and settings, style settings for all that stuff. But it's all kind of like putting a Yahtzee cup and thrown over the WordPress admin. And so you gotta really have to find all these different things and learn how to use them and figure out how they go together. It's great that we have all these things. It would be awesome if we could kind of tie them together in a more uniform way. But that's what we aimed to do with the site wizard, was like, okay, can we bring these things at least into a coherent kind of workflow to at least get people started with their site? And it's no small task to do that. It took quite a
Yeah.
while to figure that
Yeah.
out, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm happy to see that people are enjoying it.
So I want to set the scene just a little bit for this discussion of the block theme market, just a little bit, just so we're kind of level set together, also for the audience and whatnot. So, kind of the evolution of how things have gone is what we now call legacy themes. There were legacy, and I'm not even going to include Genesis in that. Of course, Genesis is legacy theme, but it was also very different. Um, but there's legacy themes essentially that you could install from WordPress.org or download from a third party site. It was very PHP based and style sheet based and functions PHP based, generally speaking. And when you get into a theme, that theme really was like, that was your website. And so it was really important in how you're going to build out your site for you to choose a theme that was kind of as similar to your vision as possible, especially if you don't have a lot of editing skills. From there, we basically introduced page builders because of how strict legacy themes are. We get into the world of Divi and Divi Builder and Elementor, Beaver Builder, even WP Bakery itself, which is a whole other thing. A long time ago, they evolved to be kind of a more robust page building experience. And those actually kind of blew the doors off of WordPress adoption in many ways. Especially Elementor. Anybody who's really in the industry recognizes that a lot of WordPress adoption recently over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years is has largely been due to tools like Elementor. Um, and then during that evolution, we get Gutenberg coming into play. And Gutenberg was always intended from the beginning to not just be only a block editor, but the whole editing experience, which after the block editor was released, I think it was about 2 years later, full site editing came into being in WordPress core. And that is what evolved to what we now have as full site editing themes, essentially. And that's kind of where we're at. And when it comes to the marketplace, all along the way, we still have a lot of legacy themes that are popular and do well. I mean, would count Cadence kind of in there in many ways as a legacy theme that has a really robust block library. And then we still have a huge page builder market. And the emerging market is block themes. Are we level set? Does that sound about right? Are we all like, did I miss something? Brian, you got something, I can tell.
I always have something to say regarding WordPress and block themes. I was just kind of chuckling in my head about it being an emerging market. We want it to be an emerging market, yet it doesn't feel that way still. So I don't want it to seem like here it is. It's on, like 'cause so many people are still so opposed to it all, which is um, an opportunity, but also sometimes really
Yeah.
deflating.
And
But
I want to hear more about that. Like, how is the full site editing theme market different than the legacy theme market? Like, what are they opposed to? What's going on?
So, I mean, we talked about classic themes or legacy themes, Matt, as you called them. Then the page builder thing exploded, and so many people you find your stack and you don't want to deviate from it. Like if it works, and to this day, Genesis still works for a lot of people. And to be honest, it'll probably work on sites into the future for years and years to come. So a lot of people just don't like change. They don't like. Some people, I think, innately just are opposed to anything WordPress does. Some people are just negative all the way around the block. And so, even though you could say WordPress now does this thing, they're like, well, my page builder does it better, which I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. So there's going to be a subset of people who just want to use their stack. They're in an ecosystem. Maybe they get some business from it. They have no reason or incentive to go outside of it. I think also most people who don't realize the current state of the block theme market um, are making judgments from 2, 3, 4 years ago that, oh, WordPress can't do this, and that's just their excuse. They won't even look into it. And I'm like, well, actually, it does, and it might do it better. And it's come a long way. And yes, we're still mid-flight and fixing the engine up in the air, so to speak. But I think, I mean, I'm personally just I feel good about this 6.9 happening this year and the work that's being scoped out. I think Ann McCarthy published a really long post around what it's going to entail. And I am a zealot for this new site admin, or the WP admin site editor sort of consolidation of whatnot. And so like I see so much potential, and I have for years. It's why I actually came back to work at WP Engine, why I built Frost, why I forked that to build Powder, because I see the potential of it. It's just sometimes frustrating the pace in which we're getting there, because you see so many things, Webflow, Framer, Figma sites that are like arguably steps ahead and moving much faster. Yet we're WordPress people, and that's what we build for. And so like it's kind of balancing that, I guess.
I'd love to hear, like, why should anyone care about block themes? Like, you are a zealot for reasons, and I think a lot of folks don't know those reasons.
I've always been a WordPress core person, right? So far back, and maybe 2% of the world would understand this, but even back in the Tim Thumb days, remember those?
It's a great way to
the
get
fiasco
hacked,
of Tim Thumb, which it was an image sizing script and plugin that people were using back in the magazine's theme days. And I remember to this day, we had implemented that into Genesis, and then WordPress core itself came out with its own image resizing feature. And I, to this day, remember where I was when I called Nathan. I said, let's undo all the work we just did and let WordPress core do its thing. And so I think it's powerful. I think it's not proprietary interfacing, which is confusing to users. I don't know, Mike. I'll let you take the baton here and continue gushing over the possibilities that WordPress core can have.
What are the advantages, Mike? Like, why should somebody care that you can do things with block themes that are different or better, or than a page builder?
Yeah, I think you could even just throw out the block theme term in a way, because this block themes aren't doing much. They're style layers largely, and they tie in natively to all of the new features and the settings and the sidebar, the design settings of WordPress. This is just the WordPress editor now. If you install WordPress right now, that's the experience you get. You get the full site editing experience with the core themes, with themes like Ollie and Frost and Powder. This is the WordPress experience now. So it's almost funny, because it's like, we don't need to make the case that this is what you should be using, or this is like, there's some awesome sauce to it. This is just WordPress now. And so it benefits everyone. It behooves everyone to not only adopt block themes, but also to get your plugins kind of tied into this new interface, because it just enhances the whole experience for everyone. So that's like on the platform level. Now on the, if you do want to talk about block themes, well, there is a huge benefit to using WordPress core as the engine to build your site, and not having to figure out, what is a page builder? Do I need one? What if I build with it for a year and I don't like it? And then what do I do next? And there's a benefit to not having to hop around and find solutions, and just learning the system that's always going to be there now, and it's only going to get better. So the more we kind of dial in and build for full site editing for our products and our websites, the better the experience gets. And then when they start rolling out all these awesome features, like the new admin and AI is clearly coming to WordPress, the core experience, you're going to get all those benefits out of the box, because you're already on a full site editing experience. You're already using a block theme, and that's the interface that it's all going to be tied into. It's not going to be tied into necessarily these custom page builders. They might lose out on that because they're not really kind of adopting the core experience. Now, that's not to say there's not a use case for these plugins. There certainly is. There was a reason they became popular, and there's a reason people love them, especially for specific kinds of building. So I don't want to sound like anti-page builder. I just feel like that kind of comes in to the equation.
You're allowed to be anti whatever you like, Mike. It's fine.
So there's a question that came in from the audience that says, if a client has already invested significantly in a website built with a classic theme, the real question becomes, are they willing to invest again to rebuild it as a block theme? So that's where I see the block theme, current state of the block theme is, we have 34% of the web, 43% of the web, sorry, is running WordPress. And that's a lot of people running old legacy themes. And like, how do we get from there to here, or here to, how do we get from here to where people have moved over to block themes? Like, what's the future?
Well, the answer to this question is probably one of the reasons why the adoption is so slow. WordPress has been historically backward
Yeah.
compatible, sometimes to a fault, right? You know, like all the way back to 2000, whatever. And so, to answer Elliot's question, no, I would have no opposition to that client staying on that classic theme for as long as they can, right? Like, there's no need to just build it just to build it. That's a waste of money. If it works, don't bother trying to fix it. And because of that, like, you know, you have to sort of, and it all depends on the client and the type of site or whatever. But you also have to understand, like, what is the lifespan of of a website? You know, some people are on the same design. I designed Becoming Minimalist like 10 years ago, and it's still the same design. So there's like this, it's not just all of a sudden people, you know, need something new because the life cycle of a website 6 months. It's sometimes years, in which case, you know, a doctor's office who had a site built 5 years ago, they don't have a need to go into the block theme until they're ready to redesign their site, maybe add some more functionality that requires it, and then you kind of go through it then. So you know, Elliot, in this case, I would say no, don't encourage them to. I mean, if they want to live on the wild side and want to invest into doing that, fine. But if it's working, I don't say fix it, you know.
I have to say, for me, one of the appeals to full site editing and block themes in general, from what I've noticed anecdotally, is they just seem to be really fast. They seem to be really fast. Like, I do a lot of local development for a lot of different purposes. I have started using. I've used local WP for forever, talking to folks who are tangential to local WP. But I've been using WordPress Studio recently because it's interesting and fun. And you spin up a site in there, and it loads up 2025, and the thing loads in milliseconds. And I switch to pages, milliseconds, and I build something out and I refresh the page, milliseconds. It's the fastest local experience I've ever experienced. And it has to be related to the theme, how minimal the theme is. Can you guys speak to that a little bit? Like, is that one reason why people should care about block themes, is just pure performance?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it has that's kind of one of the, you know, things I was talking about, kind of tying into the core experience. You get all those benefits. The performance team spent tons of time making sure that that is what happens with a block theme, because you get automatic tree shaking built in. That's where, like, the page only loads the block styles that are absolutely critical. It only loads the fonts that you're actually using on the page. All that comes cooked into WordPress now, and all that comes through with a block theme and theme JSON. That stuff is wired through the theme, the JSON file.
Brian, you had a little bit of a mixed messages look.
Oh, my head's all over the place. I'm still thinking about something I said 5 minutes ago, which is like where the weird look comes from. But the agreement of what Mike said is 100% there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I've always been fascinated by the theme business. As a plugin guy myself, like, themes have always seemed like a bad idea, to be honest, because plugins for me are functionality and themes are visual and style, and that changes more than the need for functionality. So I've always thought, like, you know, plugins are a better bet than themes. That has seemed to be continued. That seems to have been true for like a decade, and yet themes are still a business that is seemingly viable. Am I wrong? Like, how is the themes business doing?
Well, somebody's got to make them.
Go ahead.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like the themes. You're absolutely right. They have been historically kind of sidelined and backburnered and kind of treated as almost second-class citizens, which perplexes me as somebody who has made them for a long time. But not only that, but because, like, philosophically, your site and like functionality, all that's great, but the visual part of your site is what everyone sees right away. And
That's
some
true.
people make a decision right away whether or not they trust your site based on how it looks. And so to design really is high stakes in a lot of ways. And so it doesn't seem like a commodity to me. It seems like a critical part of your site. And so with the way we build Ollie and historically I've done design is bringing super high caliber design to WordPress through themes. There's no other way of doing it. So for me, it makes sense that it has to be done by somebody. And if nobody else wants to really dip into the block theme market, I guess Brian and I will just
Yeah.
be the guys to make it. So yeah.
Brian, what are you seeing in terms of adoption of your themes?
You know, like WordPress is such a, and I think we fight the battle of WordPress being open source and everything should be free as in beer. Like there's so many people, and the problem is there are so many good themes. Ollie, for instance, is on the WordPress.org repository as a free theme. Without even Ollie Pro, it's beautiful, right? So like, and I tweeted about this a couple nights ago, and I won't go too deep into this, but I'm kind of this week I'm going through a phase where I'm like, man, the race to the bottom in WordPress themes right now seems so fast, so much more than it ever was, because there's so many free themes, there's so many people doing work, and then you're up against Webflow, Framer, Squarespace, Shopify, these industries and these markets that are so much more better designed. I remember like years ago, I went to Squarespace like after they did one of the redesigns, and I was like, oh my God, like as a designer, somebody who's very pretentious when it comes to the way things look. I'm like, can you imagine if WordPress looked like this from like the website, the marketing website of WordPress? I'm like, it would be, and WordPress for whatever reason has historically always been just so bad. I say badly designed. I don't mean to really cut it down, but
It's fair.
there's an opportunity
fair.
for growth, I guess, from a design perspective. And to recognize the work that the team has done there recently to rebrand it and to like make it more modern. I certainly applaud all of those efforts as well. But man, I'm like, I sometimes wish I just wish things were better designed. And I think that's why Mike and I are doing what we're doing, because like I think we have the ability to. I think we have some reach, but it only goes so far because it powers 43% of the internet. So many people aren't even in the conversation about it. They just go to a thing and hire somebody and they do the work. And but yeah, there's a lot of opportunities.
Have you ever seen a WordPress marketing video? Ever? I'm serious. Like, have you ever seen a marketing video that looks like something that Webflow or Framer or any SaaS has created? Have you ever seen that on the WordPress.org homepage? Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet it wasn't very good. No offense to whoever made it, but it is a huge disconnect that we have in terms of like, we're sitting here talking about this awesome thing that we have now, the site editor and block editor and all these cool things, but we're not telling the story virtually anywhere. And maybe it's because historically we've been able to rely on the automatic growth that we've had, just kind of growing and growing and growing. But now with everything popping up where design is like, world-class design is table stakes almost. Every new SaaS that pops up looks incredible. And if we don't kind of get on that and figure out how to start telling this story, it's not just about growth. It's about optics. And are we an old platform or are we one that's leaning into the future? And it seems like we're leaning into the future. We have AI and all this stuff, but again, we're not really telling that story very well right now. So it would help to start there too.
Yeah, for sure. Folks listening in, if you want to find a really great WordPress video, look up the WordPress Wiggle. It's a great WordPress focused video.
That's the best marketing word for WordPress ever. Yeah, I'll declare it right here. Wiggle.fun. If you go to wiggle.fun, that is the domain name.
That's the domain name. Oh my gosh. Giving it away, Zack created this video for the WordPress community, and it's amazing. It's wonderful.
I'm going to jump in really quickly. I see a question from Kevin, and it reminds me of something I watched probably 2 years ago. It was we see it on screen, and this is inside of my head. I think the biggest problem I've had over the last several years, which is how to separate design and functionality and what belongs in a
Yeah.
theme, what belongs
Real
Zack
quick,
to
Brian,
your
let's
chagrin, a
for the
plugin.
audio listeners, Kevin Geary is in the comments and he says, I spelled out the critical problem with themes. They combine design and functionality. You're choosing architecture while choosing design, and that's a gigantic problem. That's Kevin's comment.
He continues, when you have a
Yeah,
flexible
and
unified architecture, people will buy design/layout packages because they know they won't be locked into functionality limitations.
Hmm.
so this opens a really big conversation around open source and walled gardens, because a couple of years ago, Chris Pearson did a video about the demise of WordPress e-commerce, and he talked about the fact that WooCommerce is a plugin. You need all of these different add-ons, and they cost lots of money. And he was sort of making the point where, like Shopify, which has sort of like a unified experience in the sense of like a code base that people just design on top of. It's walled and it's a garden. And yes, so I want to make sure I say that. The problem with WordPress, but the opportunity with WordPress, is that there's no sort of centralization of things. You've got page builders doing their thing. We've got block themes kind of calling things. And this talks about like the, the font colors and the sizes and, things that, is there a way to sort of harmonize stuff so we're all building on the same system? The problem is no. And I think to Kevin's point, some of these themes, Genesis was one of them, introduce functionality. They register custom post types inside of a theme, which is really bad if then you deactivate that theme and go somewhere else. And so, like, do I wish, I'll say this before, and I've said this many times, do I wish that during the Gutenberg announcement and the WordPress 5.0 thing, WordPress would have forked itself and called itself something like WordPress Pro, which was like a new platform that people just sort of plugged into? I wish it would have. I understand why it didn't, and I still think there's a lot of benefit to the fact that it never did. But I think to his point, like, and where do you draw the line? Because it's sort of the Wild West, and you can do both things inside of a theme. And
I will
don't
say,
know.
like, I get Kevin's perspective specifically because of Kevin's experience and the work that he's doing, which is I didn't list Kevin's Etch product when I was talking about the whole history of things because it's its own thing. It's its own thing. It's very different, a different approach because he's trying to solve that problem that he's highlighting here. But I think that perspective comes from the dev builder perspective. The one that cares about separation of concerns in a way that is sustainable for the project. But we know that WordPress is also largely a user-oriented platform. And the user doesn't give a damn about that point
That's right.
at all. They don't care at all. Maybe they should. Maybe we can educate them. Those are all aspects of this conversation for sure. But in general, they're going to be choosing a theme or a pattern or a library based on whether or not it's going to make their business look the way they want it to look.
Until they change themes, right? That's the problem. And like, if I create a website and I use a bunch of powder patterns and set up a beautiful website, and then I happen to see a product marketing video by Mr. McAllister that talks all about Ollie, and I switch to Ollie, every single page I've built in Powder now is broken because Powder has chosen a different sort of architecture and naming structure than Ollie has. And so from that point of view, it's a bad experience. Yes, people will work. And Mike, I know you were going to say something a minute or two ago, and I'd love to hear your perspective on where we were talking. But like, I understand that's a problem, and I don't know how to fix it. I don't think there is a way to fix
the
it.
theme portability problem, or
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Zach. Did you have something you wanted to say?
It's kind of a little bit of a change of topic, so please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. I do historically, I understand this, and I think it was a lot more important a long time ago, I guess.
Yeah.
These days, I just don't like. I'm in Matt's side where it's like I don't see it as much of a problem. These are websites. I think we kind of need to get over these esoteric debates about what is philosophically a website and look at what's happening and how fast the web is moving outside of WordPress. People do not care about these kinds of things. They want websites. If you go to any other platform, it's just as like temporary of a website that it is, switching between block themes. If we really want, we can solve that problem in WordPress. In fact, I have a prototype that helps you switch between block themes. It's not that hard to do. You just change in a few variables, basically. But again, I think this kind of utopian idea of switching themes and it's perfectly seamless, that never existed. It
Hmm.
will never exist, and I don't
Mhm.
think people actually
Mhm.
care that much about it. It seems
Oh,
like a developer
yeah.
conversation people like to have, but not a real actual problem. I think
I
people
felt like,
understand that when you update your site, it's going to take a little work,
for sure.
and that's just the way it is.
I felt like that was a little bit in view when Gutenberg was being built out, though, in the first place. That if you get rid of a plugin that registered a bunch of blocks, all that's left behind is more or less a placeholder, a code placeholder, like HTML comments that could be just completely disappeared on the front end, worst case, or maybe it converts well in one way or another. It feels like that idea was kind of baked in to Gutenberg a little bit and maybe could be expanded on. I don't know.
I do
Am I-
think it speaks to the larger issue, which is the developer experience. Like, okay, so you have a site that has a bunch of blocks that disappear when you switch themes or don't look good anymore.
Hmm.
Is there a standard screen where I can review all the blocks that need to be adjusted? No, there's not. Is there like
Yeah.
any sort of migration pathway? Not currently, and I think that was a mistake to not have ready for the initial Gutenberg release. But I've had recent experience with block theme issues, and I agree with Elliot 100%. The main issue I've always had with block theming is version control. You could argue the database becomes the source of truth now, but as a developer, I'd much prefer a Git-based approach. So I've been trying to redesign my website, and it's been horrible. In part because there's no way to actually make changes using code. I thought that the theme.json file was the answer to this, and that I'd update theme.json, push it, and everything would magically work, like a JSON version of a CSS file. That's not the case, and I felt very misled as to the benefits of the block theming structure.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then I asked, like, how do you do this? How do you get versions of your site? Like, how do you see what's changing? And I was told you have to like download zips. You have to go like create block theme, download a zip, and then back that up. It's
Yes.
madness as a developer. So for me to look at a block theme and say like this is the obvious way forward, well, maybe if you're starting from scratch, it's a horrible it has been for me a horrible experience that I don't recommend to anybody unless you're just starting fresh and saying like I'm not even going to try to port my existing theme, or like I'm going to build a new website, import my content, put on a theme, and like start from there. Migration was not good for me.
Hmm.
Everything is fun and games until somebody clicks the reset styles
Yeah.
button inside of
I
the
lost a
site.
week of of multiple people working on this website just because we didn't know how it worked.
I do think.
Okay, so
Okay,
real
go
quick
ahead.
though, go ahead, Mike.
Just to finish that point, Zach's exactly right. Like the conversation we should be having is not about the necessarily the fine-tuned portability from theme to theme. It is on the developer level. That is a huge missing piece. Even just being able to make a pattern and write it to your theme, there's no core way of doing that. It's a very
Yeah.
goofy process. So that is where, if we want to like hammer on things, that I think is a very important place to place some attention.
Yeah, and this brings us back to, I think, maybe a central reason why things are the way they are in the block theme space is that I think we'll just say the general consensus is that Gutenberg came out to compete with Squarespace and Wix. I mean, that was the answer like
Yeah.
5 years ago, and that means was WordPress itself actually going more towards the DIY user versus the developer? And if that's the case, that's symptomatic. Users and DIY people don't care. They don't care about version control. They just want to change some things and it gets stored off in the database, and that's fine. Assuming they don't push the reset styles button, that's enough for them. They have a theme. It's a good place to start. They do their customizations, end of story. Now, I think what we're seeing here is sort of the tension between what WordPress, where it seemed to have gone from like who the market was, who it was built for, versus like the developer side. And we're like, hey, wait a second, like we're the ones who brought WordPress here. We're the ones who have the $20,000 websites. And then Zach, very much to your point, and so much to your point that I don't generally use the database to store my things. I just go back into my theme JSON file and make all of my updates in the theme itself. So it's always the
Yeah.
source of truth
Yeah.
that's right.
But there's no. I wish there were disable overrides, like so that only theme JSON were able to be used. Maybe I'm
Well, that would effectively take out all of the
uh,
controls because the controls are there as an
right.
extension of to change a color. And we won't even talk about global controls versus like individual controls, like changing the size or color of a specific heading, because then that becomes even more problematic because you reset your styles and that's baked into like
So,
the markup.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
honestly, in so many ways, what you're all bringing up is that the state of the block theme market is broken.
I wouldn't.
that might be
Yeah, I would say that
yeah.
more succinctly, I would say that the developer experience for modern WordPress is insufficient. I think if you get through that and you
Yes.
can build, like, Ollie's a fully functioning, successful product in the block space. And it's because we spent the time to figure it out and build the tools we needed to fill the gaps to do that. So you can build through it and get a product up and out. But I think, and to somebody's point earlier, WordPress isn't just a bunch of developers. It's largely end users, and
Yeah.
they're the ones that are going to benefit from these products. Now, for the builders, though, that is where there's a disconnect. Could be a product potential for somebody to kind of get in there and build something. It would be great if it happened in core, but
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have tried myself, done experimenting a lot with building out a new online documentation plugin. And I built it classic theme first, oriented. And then I was like, you know what? I should just take a stab at trying to make this work with a full site editing theme. And I started to register some patterns to work on my custom post type. And it became extremely excruciating to figure out how to make that work from a plugin perspective.
So it sounds like we have consensus that the developer experience needs to be improved. But my question is, what about for people who are looking into getting into the theme space, and for product owners who are already in the theme space? What advice do you two have for them?
for people,
Learn how to build
yeah,
Plugins.
I would say understand the full site editing paradigm, because I think people still don't quite understand the paradigm, like how these things fit together and what it means for what a block theme is. It's not like the old style themes. You really have to change your thinking about it and get off this idea that it's much lighter. It's the best thing you could do for a block theme is make sure it integrates perfectly with the controls and everything that are already there, and that it's fully customizable, and you're not adding CSS that can't be overwritten by the user. There's a lot to take in that paradigm, and it takes building a few sites to understand how it works. Then you can understand what makes a good product in that space, but you have to understand the problem first. And I also just think, and I've said this many times on different pods, is that this era is going to dictate that there are not going to be, or we're not going to need as many themes anymore.
Right.
We just don't need them. Ollie and Frost, they all do kind of different versions of the same thing, and that all the power and all the energy is in WordPress core, and the style layer on the theme is like dictates that maybe we only need one core default theme going forward, and we just slightly tweak it because you just don't need that many themes for this new era. So
correct me if I'm wrong there, though. But the patterns, the theme, especially Ollie, you're registering a lot of patterns,
yeah,
and if the theme is swapped out, those patterns are then gone.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep, yeah, and
Which
that's where
the
it'd be
patterns
great if we
themselves
use.
might be what the people really want. So, like, themes stop
Mhm.
being themes and start being libraries of patterns.
Yeah, and that's where it'd be great if we had shared slugs and variables that you could really mix and match. But we kind of dropped the ball on that too. So everyone kind of uses their
Yeah.
own slugs, and it becomes so.
Mm.
Yeah, I think is even though we're several years in now, I think it's still shaking out to what this is going to look like. But I think there's a reason that there's not so many block themes. I just don't know exactly why. I think one reason as well is like you do have to have some design sense, because it is a design layer, and so you need to know how to make it, and you need to know how to kind of design it so it fits all together in this theme sandwich of sorts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Brian, what's your best advice for folks who are trying to cut their teeth in the block theme market?
I don't know that I would tell anybody at this point to just go try to create a WordPress theme business. First and foremost, it's a tough market anyways, and without having any sort of historical credibility or name, it's hard to make a name for yourself now, right? And even then, like, what does that actually mean? We haven't even talked about AI or what even a website is, or the fact. I mean, the need for a website has significantly decreased over the last 12 hours, much less 2 weeks or 5 months or whatever. And so, like, there's parts of me where I'm like, and I say this as a former partner of Copyblogger, where we preached about digital sharecropping. It seems to be more the accepted behavior now, and people don't care. Like, I think Mike, you said this, people don't care. Like, I remember I was doing a real estate project a few years ago, and I said to somebody's like, I don't need a website. I have LinkedIn or I have Facebook. And I'm like, it's true that in certain markets, you don't even need a website. So, like, I think there's so much of WordPress and theme and design stuff that in my head, I'm like, I know I can do a whole bunch of things with it, but is there even a need for the things I want to create? And I think that's the bigger problem, which is there's probably a lot more. And Zach, to your point, as we started, so much more opportunity in finding the actual needs within WordPress than trying to, like, be yet another theme shop or try to make. I mean, when's the last time you heard a theme shop get acquired for $10 million? And it doesn't really happen. I don't know if it ever did. But the plugin business, the functionality part of it all, I think is, and I hate to say this because I'm not a developer. I'm good, but not great at writing code. So, like, again, I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from joining the market per se. Yeah, as a table stakes thing, as part of your value add, I mean, I would say, sure, yeah, create a free theme and build functionality on top of it and do other things, like Mike is doing with Ollie, or even like what Kevin's doing with Etch. I talked to him yesterday, and I plan on just understanding what he's building and why, because I live in my own siloed lane in my head. Like, it's got to be this way. This is the only way I ever do things. And I think we learn a lot about a lot of things when you just go under the hood and just try to understand other perspectives and what are the opportunities out there and stuff like that. And I've got Ollie Pro. I took it down. I ripped open the code. I'm like, what is he doing and how does this work? Because I want to know. Not so I could steal it, though I could potentially with the licensing, but like, because maybe it opens the door in my mind to, like, hey, maybe there's a different opportunity or a different place I can go with my business or the things that I'm working on that are not just like what the next person's doing.
Well, as somebody who's built their business on top of gravity forms, hello, I wonder, for people who are looking to enter the theme business, would it make sense to have, like, I don't know, Genesis had tons of people doing this where they would sell child themes. Is that still a path toward prosperity?
That's a good point.
Or
I mean,
viability?
probably not child themes, right? But more like Ollie-based patterns.
Yeah, like
right.
Ollie
Like
ecosystem kind of things.
Elementor is thriving due to their ecosystem. Is Ollie ecosystem something you're trying to build out, Mike?
I would say, like, it's a cool idea. I don't know, because of how new everything still is. And I also think still the WordPress product ecosystem is just moving at a snail's pace. So not even themes. I'm talking about plugins still. There's so many plugins that are just so big and they have so many installs. There's no incentive for them to really update for the block editor era. It's still difficult for people to build block plugins and things. I think people should start leaning on AI coding agents as assistants, because they can write really good plugins that are good, well-written code. So yeah, I mean, an ecosystem thing could shake out if the kind of the plugin ecosystem kind of wakes up a little bit, I think.
Interesting. In terms of where we kind of like very stealthily moved into best advice section of our show, and I think I'm going to piggyback on Brian a little bit, because I'm going to disagree.
With Brian Gardner?
Ooh, let's go.
When it comes
are you sure you want to do that, Matt?
Yeah, that seems
on the record,
unadvisable.
I might suggest you do that. Disagree with me, because that's probably a smarter path to go.
I mean,
Let's
one of
hear
the
it. Let's hear
things
it.
in this show, and when I talk to folks at WordCamps and everything, when they're asking about, like, I'm trying to get into the product business in one way or another, like, what do I do? We talk about like market opportunities and like, where do you find, you know, everything seems so flooded. And so, like, there's so much crowded space when it comes to like, can't build a form plugin that's like totally filled. You can't build a donation plugin that one's filled.
For chicken.
But honestly, if you think about it right now, there really is like you two that are building block themes right now, and that just, to me, like, that means that there's a lot of opportunity right now. Now, is it lucrative opportunity? I'm not totally sure, but it's lots of opportunity for innovation for sure. There's lots of
Tons.
opportunity for something in one way or another, because if you're looking for a place to dig in and you know how to scratch this itch in particular, it's a wide open field. It's wide open right now. Now, what that exactly looks like might be etch. I think Kevin looked at the field and was like, hey, there's a wide open area here, and I'm going to do something so radically different, designed towards my audience. And he jumped on that. So I do think that etch is one of the examples of trying to innovate in this space, considering where we are today, right now. But I haven't seen anybody say, look, I'm going to build the most beautiful design-oriented pattern library that WordPress has ever seen. I haven't seen anybody really do that, and say like, oh, and by the way, it works great with Ollie. By the way, it works great with Frost. By the way, it works great even if you're using Cadence. It works, under all these different circumstances. That might be something that is a wide open field right now.
I think it makes sense for the translation layer to be done in each theme at this point, to try to be back compatible with other themes, and that's its own kind of nightmare of maintenance. But we have a listener, Sinan WP, says, I have some plans for my block theme still shaping up, but I think the patterns are going to be my main plan.
Yeah,
That sounds really good. And
yeah,
this, as a plugin guy, one of the things that WordPress added on the repository, on the plugin directory, you can have like JavaScript only plugins that are listed when you do a search for blocks.
yeah.
That's still so underutilized. I've found the weirdest plugins when searching for a block, that it seems like people could optimize for that really well. So heck, I'll have that as best advice. Just try to get listed as a suggestion in
plugin.
your block, in the block theme pattern search,
Mhm.
or not even pattern search, but like block searching functionality.
Yep.
Can I walk back my statement? Just
I
here
disagree
for a second?
harder than I thought. Oh my gosh.
No. I want to clarify. I don't think I would not encourage anybody to go in and build a block theme, a utilitarian block theme to serve all the people, because that's jack of all trades, master of none. WordPress has always, and plugins are a great example. WordPress has always been the ripest place to verticalize and go into niche marketing. So many people don't do it. I remember back in the Genesis days, Shay Box created a theme called Foodie. It was one theme. It served a very specific market. It was underserved. And in her heyday, I hate to say this out loud, but she was making over $10,000 a month on that one theme alone, because food blocking was a thing. And she didn't even go into the functionality pieces of it. Similarly, I think that was my problem with Powder. I was like, I'm just going to create a theme and I'm going to serve all the people. One day I'm going to serve, wedding photographers, and then I'm going to serve, lawyers. And it's like, you can't go very deep in all of that stuff. And so I think, Mike, Ollie's like for creators, right? If you take a kind of look at the like sort of the design packs you have inside of them, I mean, it's all around a kind of a specific sort of subset. And I got so frustrated with the current state of block theme market right now that I'm going into a vertical. I'm like, I'm going to solve a bigger problem with people who have an actual need, and get out of my own sort of, I sometimes get into this like mindset where I'm just going to create art and people are going to buy it. I'm like, that's
Artists
not
are
working. So
misled
I'm
in
going
that
to
notion.
put on the business cap and solve a problem for a subset of people who really have a need, and that's where I'm going to actually pivot and take my side
Interesting.
projects. So
I think that's super smart. There's no solutions out there for these verticals for this modern block theme era. There's all these old junky themes that have just been around forever. Sorry to say, but they're junk. You could create that solution for lawyers. Make a nice block theme that kind of low stakes. It's got all the right styles, kind of geared a little more professional. A few utility plugins, which you can whip up easily with AI to kind of get that very specific functionality, reach out for a quote and all these, and you could set that up on Instant WP where people instantly launch your site. Like, all that's out there and possible if you want to do it. And I think verticals are a very smart place to target.
Nice. So
I'll sign up for this best advice too. I'm on board.
Hey,
Nice.
I think we just created a business together. Is that just what happened live on the show?
Yes.
We're all jumping
This
into
is a
like
new startup.
verticalized block themes together.
vertical
Yeah.
WP.
Quit your day
awesome.
jobs. We're gonna do this full time. Let's
We're
go.
selling verticals, people.
Awesome. Any last thoughts, ideas, comments, questions, hopes, and dreams and aspirations for the world of block themes?
I'll start us here because I saw a tweet last night. I can't remember who tweeted it. Actually, it's their post now, right? Because it's X. Something around, and I think we can all agree, WordPress, the core WordPress community is a very, very deep echo chamber. We talk to the same 100 people, and we all talk about to each other and whatever, right? And WordCamp US is coming up, and that's going to happen again. Sort of reiterate what I was talking about. I think to your question, Matt, about like what would you tell someone who wants to get into the WordPress theme space? Like the best way for me to sort of give the last piece of advice I'll give, which is instead of saying I'm going to create a WordPress thing that does X, how about I'm going to solve a problem that just happens to be WordPress based, right? Like the industry I'm going to serve, I'm not going to create a WordPress theme for these people. I'm going to go serve these people and happen to do it by building them a WordPress theme. And so I think, and I've been challenging myself to sort of look outside of not outside of WordPress, like I'm going to go build for other places, but just be like, okay, like bring WordPress down a little bit and solve real world problems with WordPress versus like, I'm going to do a thing that does X. I don't know. I'm not articulating my thoughts very well.
I've heard several folks say at times like we should stop making WordPress an adjective of everything we do. We're not building like a WordPress donation plugin. We're not building a WordPress calendar. We're not building a WordPress theme. We're solving these problems for customers that happen to be on WordPress. I think that's really good advice for sure.
Yep.
Well, I think that's a wrap. Brian, Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you online?
You could find me on x.com/Mike McAllister, or you can find Ollie at olliewp.com.
Similarly, I'm B Gardner in most places, especially on X and like Instagram. BrianGardner.com is really still the hub of what I'm going to build. And you can find me in my future project at insert domain name that nobody knows.
Oh, come on.
Oh, come on. You don't want to launch it here?
Launch it live.
No, it's password protected. I could say the name, but
where should they go to get on the waiting list? Okay.
Just follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called. That's where I always sort of telegraph all my moves. And if you start seeing polls around certain things, then you really know I'm in the weeds on building something for that when I start polling, because that's sort of my way to get market research.
Nice.
So,
nice.
Thank you both so much for joining us. And next week, continuing the theme of themes, our hosts Katie and Amber will be chatting with Yonat Negu, founder of ThemeIsle. So he'll be talking with us about how to set your pricing according to the stage your product and business is in. This is good stuff. So put it in your calendar now.
Yep, and special thanks to Post Status for being our green room every single week. If you're enjoying these shows, do us a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're on all the podcast channels, so you can follow us there. Share it with your friends, reference it in your email newsletters, all the things. If you could, that'd be nice. And don't forget to tune in again next week. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.